Labour are proposing free breakfast clubs to tackle persistent school absence. I'm going to look into this more from BBC, you guys. Let's go. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is REGANELITE here with an article from the BBC with a headline that Labour are proposing free breakfast clubs to tackle the persistent school absences. It also says for better mental health support for pupils who would be part of Labour's plans to improve school attendance in England. So, obviously, one of the things that has been happening over the last 14 years of Conservatives is our education system, state-specifically education system, has gotten worse. It's not really gotten better. It's become harder for teachers to put on a face here for them, and it means that kids are not getting the best education that can possibly get in the UK, and it has fallen under the Conservatives with their terms of austerity, of course, which has had a great deal of impact. Now, the proposal for free breakfast clubs makes complete, total sense, guys. We have many families who are struggling to make ends meet, struggling to feed their kids, let alone feed themselves, guys. And there are some kids out there who are just not getting fed at all. It really is a horrible thing. I've heard some really horrific stories about the lengths that parents and some kids go to get fed, and it really is really depressing when I hear those stories. So this is something that I generally believe that Labour will push through, and I'm very happy to hear that they're proposing the free breakfast club, because it's so important. It's so important that they get food in their bellies. It's really important. Without food, guys, if you don't eat enough food, you don't focus enough. You don't have enough energy. You're not able to concentrate on whatever the task is at hand. And it's especially important for children. You guys know, some of you might be even parents listening to this. You know how important it is to make sure that your kids kids have at least two to three meals a day. I personally like to eat 3 meals a day. That's me personal preference. Some people only prefer 2, but personally, if I was to advise somebody on how they should eat, I think they should eat 3 meals a day at least. One breakfast, lunch, and evening. Some people don't. Some people don't like have breakfast and they just have lunch or dinner, vice versa. But I generally feel it's breakfast for me is an important meal for the start of the day. Fills your stomach up, fills you up with energy. Some people obviously it's different. They just prefer coffee or whatever. But for kids, it just gives them that little bit of boost of energy that that can make a difference in that classroom and give them a little bit more focus when it comes to the whatever their lessons are for the day. It's just good for the nutrition as well. But I'm sure most of you guys agree with me. That this is a really important step, and especially for those obviously at the poor ends that I've mentioned already. And also for those in the middle incomes who can still feed their kids, it means they get to save a bit of pennies as well if they get them signed up to the free breakfast club. So there's that way as well. The persistent school absence is a challenge. You need to encourage kids to come into schools, and the environments need to be as best as they possibly can for them. And that means looking at best ways that we can give the teachers all the equipment, the supplements that they can need to deliver the best education possible for children up and down the country, regardless of who they are and where they're from, all over England. So better mental health support for pupils would be part of Labour's plans to improve school attendance in England. The Shadow Education Secretary Bridget Phillipson set out the proposals measures including free breakfast clubs for primary schools and an event in the Centre for Social Justice on Tuesday, the CSJ. The plans also include increased funding for early speech and language interventions. I think it's really important that kids learn a different language. I think that's one thing we've definitely lacked. I mean, I was learning French. I was learning French at a point, and unfortunately, our teacher that we had, our French teacher that we had, she sadly died of breast cancer, and they never got a replacement for her. So I'd learned quite a bit of French yet, and then it kind of just went because they never found that replacement in, which is a real shame. I mean, it's easy for people probably saying you should have carried on your French. I should have done, and you can tell me off because I was a kid back then. But I think learning a different language is very good. I actually think we should learn whatever. I mean, obviously, there's lots of different languages that we want to teach our kids. I think like German, Spanish, whatever. I think early speaking, being able to speak, because there are some kids that obviously have speaking disabilities as well. This kind of stuff, I'm all for. I'm really all for this kind of stuff. Then there's obviously the question of funding. This week, the government promised to extend the existing attendance hub scheme to support 1,000 more schools in England. Every day, our children at school are so incredibly important, said Phillipson. It damages their life chances when they aren't there. So it's about that partnership that we need to see between parents and schools, but also between schools and government, because governments have responsibilities as well. That's one thing that I do believe that they've lacked is the support from the schools to the state schools. Among Labour's plans to tackle persistent absence is a creation of a national register for homeschool pupils, designed to track children who are not in mainstream schooling. The proposal would include using Ofsted to review attendance data and employ AI to spot trends in absence by linking with existing records and other services such as social care. That would be very interesting, to say the least, using AI for that. Ms Phillipson told the BBC these measures would be funded by ending the tax breaks that private schools enjoy. I've covered that on a video on Patreon, which you can see for free if you check out my link. Check out the Patreon there under the tabs exclusive videos, and you'll find one or two about that and my views on there. The Department of Education, the DfE's data showed more than 1 out of every 5 children in England are persistently absent from school, doubling the proportion before the COVID pandemic. So this was even before the COVID pandemic. Persistent absence means missing at least 10% of school days for about 4 full weeks from the academic year. That's not good enough for kids at all. A CSJ report last week suggested more school sports could help, but also found some parents thought children did not need to be in school full time. The DfE said parents have a duty to ensure children attend school. I don't know. I don't think it's the case that children don't want to be in school full time. I think it's because there's a lot of factors into them. The school standards are not as high as they used to be. There's been the schools, like I've said at the start of the video, guys, lack of funding and the belief that the schools will give their child the best education possible. These things have had a factor into them as well. The crisis around school buildings as well, with the RAC concrete around in school buildings. That's not helped the situation, so it makes parents feel uncomfortable about whether they want to have their children in a school with potential using building materials that could potentially be fatal. That's also crossed their minds as well, so we have to remember that at RAC as well. So there's just a few reasons why they might not want their kids in the school. I honestly don't think it is a case of parents not wanting their kids to get an education. I don't believe that. There may be a very small minority of parents who are like that, but I think the vast majority want their kids to get the best education possible. But I think it's just as much about restoring that trust between parents and the schools and the teachers, because I do feel that the failure of government to ensure funding and the support they needed to teachers and schools has had a detriment on the relationship between teachers, pupils, and parents themselves. I believe that's had an effect on it. So that's where I think that point is. The DfE said parents have a duty to ensure children's attendance school, of course. On parents' roles in improving pupil absence, Ms Phillipson said, I think we also have to be clear that parents have responsibilities as well. Yes, of course. We're fully aware that parents have a duty as well. It's about everyone involved working together, pulling together to make difference that we need as a country, because it damages us all. When children are not in school, it's not those who children are missing out, but all of us as a society as well. Yeah, we could potentially lose a generation of children if we're not careful. That's the thing. And we want to give them the best education possible. Labour's plans are being backed by Sir Kevin Collins, a former school catching T-star. Sir Kevin highlighted the impact of the pandemic on school absence and educational attendance, calling the current strain a real crisis. COVID has cast a long education shadow, and unfortunately for some children, they are still suffering the consequences of learning loss, he told BBC News. All too often, the response to the pandemic has been piecemeal and, in my view, half-hearted. I still think that children were not given enough time after the pandemic to get back to get education levels they could. That's not the teachers' fault. That's not the teachers' fault. I'm not blaming teachers for that. I just think the government didn't have the plans that they had. I think the governments and the Department of Education probably didn't have a good enough, a reasonable plan to ensure that they could get the time they need to catch up on the education that they've missed out during those pandemic times. And obviously, of course, there's only so much online courses and laptops and computers and stuff. You know, it worked on some schools, some places, but it didn't work for all. So I do think the DFE did not do enough in my opinion during that time. Boris Johnson appointed Sir Keevan in February 2021 to advise the government in helping England's school recover and create a long-term plan to help students catch up on learning after the pandemic. I'm a Labour Party sympathiser and I was happy and honoured to go and support a Conservative Prime Minister, Sir Keevan had said. We all have to stand up and do our part. But he resigned a few months later after the government allocated $5 billion in funding rather than the $15 billion he had advised. There you go, right there, guys. He didn't need the £10 billion less than what was told. The phase was used, and we were maxed out on recovery, and I don't think we were ever maxed out on recovery, Sir Keevan said. We left schools too often on their own to resolve this. For too many children in our most vulnerable communities, but we failed them and let them down. On Monday, the government announced £15 million worth of investment over 3 years to address school attendance issues. The DfE promised 18 new attendance hubs, bringing a total of 32 across England, providing tailored support to pupils at 2,000 schools up from 1,000. The government also plans to provide more targeted and intensive support to more than 10,000 severely absent students and their families. Conservative MP Robert Walker, chair of the Education Select Committee, told BBC Radio 4 Today programme that the government should focus on the increasing number of students missing up to half their time in school, so-called severe absences. Mr Walker said he supported a public information campaign to inform parents what the right conditions were for students to stay at home because of illness and when they should go to school nonetheless. The Education Secretary Gillian Keegan called attendees issue her top priority. We all want our children to have the best start in life because we know that attending school is vital for a child's well-being, development and attainment, she says. And how have they done with that, the Conservatives, over the last 14 years? I thought so. Nothing. Well, the consistent changing of the education minister doesn't help teachers either as well. The changing in governments and over the last several years doesn't help either. So that's not helped teachers and schools whatsoever. But I'm all for. One of my final thoughts. I'm all for the Labour's proposal about the free breakfast clubs and their ideas. I'm not sure about this one about the attendance thing with the use of artificial intelligence, but let's wait and see more details on that as more information of that comes out. I think it's the best response. So I am in agreement with Labour's proposal here. I don't think anyone should make. I don't think there's any reason why we should not be in agreement that this free breakfast club will no doubt help the most poorest of children when it comes to food. I think that's really, really important. So ideas and new ideas to help tackle the school absences. My hope is that if Labour do come into power, that they can rebuild the trust, not just between teachers and parents and the pupils, but also that connection, as they said in the article, between the schools, the teachers, and of course the government, the Department of Education, because I do feel that trust has been broken. I really, really do. So what do you guys think? What do you guys make of Labour's proposals to tackling the persistent school absences? Do you agree with Labour's proposals? Do you think that they don't go far enough and more should be done? Let me know what you guys generally think in the comments section down below. Hit the like button, be greatly appreciated. Share this across social media and hit that bell notification icon so you'll be notified of when I upload another video. And if you want to financially support what I do here, you can do so by being a member on YouTube for just 99p or joining me on Patreon for exclusive content. Thanks so much for watching, guys, and I hope to catch you all very, very soon.